And then I do a timestamp.
There you go. Get your rhythm, buddy.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the rhythm.
I was about to say, we get slightly edit this.
50. Yeah, I'll slightly edit it because it's going to be impossible. Where are we going next? Should we go Andrew Schulz?
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Let's go Andrew Schulz. Andrew Schulz was just on a podcast called The Interview. The Interviewer or The Interview?
Yes.
The Interview with Andrew Schulz, hosted by David Marchese of the New York Times. And this is a New York Times podcast. So this is the first time I've ever seen this show.
Me too.
Is that, I guess it's always done like this, a two-part thing where you interview with them originally.
In a real place.
Maybe in person. And then within 2 weeks, you guys follow up.
Online.
Yeah.
Is it always that rhythm too?
That's
because I didn't look at any of the other ones.
Or
is it always some sort of? I mean, following up online and 2 weeks later is always going to be easier.
That makes more sense because it's
does,
like, why the fuck would you ask me to come back here?
Yeah,
2
but in
weeks
this
from now to do 15 more minutes at the back,
right? Because they're not doing no full interviews. It's really just them to come back and reflect.
Yeah,
on their first conversation.
It's the same. This is also, every time.
It is
same every time.
Yeah,
and this is also
it's a pretty decent. It's an interesting concept.
It's new.
It's produced by the New York Times,
right?
Which it gives.
Which do with that what you will.
Is it official?
Well, he's a journalist.
Yes, which is very important.
Bare minimum. He's a nerd.
And that's the box he wants to be in.
Yeah, so in this interview, Andrew Schulz, I think he got cooked in the politest way possible, honestly. I mean, from start to finish, I think really early in the interview, Andrew realized you're not joking your way out of this conversation. I think that's what happened. I think they had honest, I think the interviewer was having an honest conversation. I think Andrew was struggling with having an honest conversation because he was trying to pawn it off. I think it got embarrassing about halfway through because he just stopped answering questions and would just answer, "What do you think?" Like, that got nasty at a certain point.
Yeah.
Where it was, you're asking me too many good questions that I don't want to answer, so when you ask me something good, well, what do you think? And it's like, this is, I thought that was.
Thought it was combative?
I thought that was nasty.
Andrew definitely has some faults, but I think it was a little bit more of an even exchange than you making it seem, because the thing is, it's like, they started off okay, and then it got a little rocky in between to where like Andrew Schulz was doing the whole, I'm not gonna answer the question, I'm gonna flip it on you. But for some reason, the journalist dude, what was his name again? Because we got
Marchese.
Marchese. David Marchese.
David Mediachi.
Marchese or Marchese.
He wasn't stern enough. He was a little too pliable on some of the points. Like it got to the point where it felt like Andrew was running the interview, and that's his fault because you have the keys, you have the steering wheel. So it's like, if you got a guest that's avoiding questions by flipping it on you, he's not even thinking in the moment to like go like, nigga, this nigga's trying to get me. I think there's a point where he eventually comes out and he's like, yo, I'm really having a hard time when you keep flipping the question on me. Like, I got to think of an answer. Like, you got to be able to combat that as a journalist, as an interviewer, as a person in media. Like, you can't get that, you can't get flipped that easily.
I think both happened. I think Andrew was caught off guard because he thought it was going to be a regular interview.
Right.
But, or no, he might have thought it was going to be, watch the Patreon too, but he might have thought it was going to be a mix of a conversation. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it turned out to be like a directed interview.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that he was caught off guard, but he wasn't really pulling the whole like answer, like ask a question back until he realized he was trying to gain the dude's perspective because he wanted to see like, like if he was trying to paint Andrew as a villain or what he was trying to paint Andrew as. Because he even said it, like the interviewer, Marchese, he was like, I have, and this is just me saying like, this is how he thinks.
Right.
I have like these line of questions that, I put it in chronological order because, I usually do that, to set up my interviews. But with you, I feel like I could just get into anything. So right there, he's a fucking robot. You know what I mean? So it's the energy in the room is probably like, well, this is strange. Yeah. And then he's asking, I can't remember the specific questions, but he's asking questions in a way that it seems like he's already put Andrew in a box. Like maybe, like he already has. That's a pretty big spider.
What you where?
Get it, AJ. Yeah.
Use them loafers, nigga. Yeah, nah, he's good. But
Fat ass loafers.
you're definitely right. But I think they both came into the situation paranoid. Andrew Schulz probably just watched that CNN interview with Tim Dillon, and he saw the way Tim Dillon handled himself, and he was, oh yeah, I have to be able to reach that same bar because I'm a comedian too.
And he did one with Tim Dillon. Wait, what Tim Dillon?
So Tim
Dillon did an interview on CNN, which is kind of legendary because she was doing the whole
like a one-on-one interview.
But this and this, and he was shrewd. He operated very smoothly, and I think Andrew saw that. So he's going into this situation with that already on his mind, and on the journalist's part, he's thinking more from he's worried about who's coming through the door. To the extent that, like, is this just another manosphere nigga who's got like a certain criteria of things he believes, and he's just gonna red pill me to death?
Which he kind of. I'm not going to say the interview. I'm not going to say Marchese did that because he's like a fucking robot. It's just like AI. Like he just.
I thought it was pretty normal.
And he was honest. He was pretty open and honest.
But
just having questions doesn't make you a robot, though.
Having
a plan for your interview doesn't make you a robot.
I'm not saying. I'm saying. Did you watch the interview?
I watched the whole thing.
Sat up straight the whole time. But yeah,
The formality of it. It was just
the nigga when he was like, "Oh, I don't like compliments, please." He literally turned his whole body. The nigga, he's a little squirmy.
He's a little strange, socially
but it's
anxious
not
kind of dude.
Smart guy, intelligent, but he's a little.
Seemed like a nigga doing his job. It seemed like to me.
But the fact that was his nature is why this shit was perfect.
And,
my fault.
No.
Like, secretaries and strippers envy each other because they're both in the service industry. One of them hoes is free, and they just get like the life to be blissful and free, and they don't have to be uptight. And one of them gets the respect and the acclaim of being like a professional woman. That's what was happening between these two niggas, because it's like we got this smarky, swimey journalist who isn't really stern. Like a nigga like Andrew Schulz is, to where it's like whatever he says, I'm just gonna say it boldly. I'm gonna put it on the table. He's thinking about like old school journalism shit that prevents him from just being honest. And on the other end, Schulz is a comedian that thinks he's smart and that is trying to get into this world of like talking about real issues with real people that really matter. And so he kind of wants his intellect to be like respected in a way that the journalist is. And the journalist dude kind of wants that freedom to just be like Schulz, to not have to jump through hurdles and try to filter his opinion through what's supposed to be tried and true.
Well, I think it's one-sided.
I think half of that is true.
I think it's one-sided.
I don't think the journalist. I think Andrew wants to get into that world. I don't think the journalist is dying to be a part of this world.
Well, no, I don't think Andrew doesn't want to be
not dying to be a part of the world, but dying to have that same ability to where it's
I don't think so.
I can be bold about what I'm saying.
I think it's one-sided. Like Andrew wants like the freedom to just, because he made a great point. He was like, if you make a joke, are you a comedian now, or is your journalist badge off?
He folded on that,
you know. And the journalist was like, well, shit. I mean, you kind of got me on that, because it's like just because I'm asking a real question, my comedy card is gone. It's like, no, like I'm always still a comedian. This whole conversation is just about being like the manosphere and podcasting, like that style is being put in a box, and like how it was used, you know, with the Democratic Party as a political agenda to push certain things. And, you know, Andrew Schulz, Tim Dillon, Joe Rogan, everybody under the Joe Rogan sphere, they just got hit in like this barrage. But
I didn't watch the Tim Dillon thing.
It was great,
but
she was stupid, though.
If he handled himself perfectly, I think is, if he was going in there like, oh, this would be great if I had a moment like this, like Tim just had. To me, this interview proved that Andrew's not ready for this level of political commentary, because he didn't even. This is the thing. I think Andrew was being disingenuous, and he wasn't being truthful throughout the whole interview. And as that 45 minutes unfolded, his points started folding on each other. I think he, was trying to stay away from anything. He was asking them very direct questions in terms of like, how you are a social media guy, you know what works and things of that nature. Like, how do you know when you're saying things that aren't real or aren't authentic? How are you even making the determination between what's authentic and what's non-authentic? And then later down in the interview, he's like, well, I guess I don't know how to say what's not authentic, but I know what feels inauthentic. And then it was like another part was,
I do feel like, real quick, that is honest.
Nah, the reason I don't feel like it was honest is because also it was there was a moment when, well, there's several moments, but hold on. Let me pull this
Just
up.
in terms
Go
of
ahead,
being
go
like a person, you walking around in daily life, like you're not constantly thinking, am I being authentic? But what might come to your brain is, damn, was that fake? What I just did? Like, did I just do something did I just play up to somebody else's standards because that's what I was supposed to do?
Yeah.
Socially.
And Marchese, I think Andrew sensed that like there was a soul in Marchese. It wasn't just like a computer system and codes, like, because he even like the second half of the interview when they was at home or something, Marchese was like, yeah, you know,
I remember what I was
it had it kind of blew my mind when you were asking me the questions back, because as an interviewer, it's hard to differentiate like my job from what I want. So it's kind of hypocrisy, because he was asking Andrew a question, and Andrew even said, like, you know, he was asking him a question that he didn't really even think of himself and that he participates in. Like, he does.
I didn't think that
That's kind of a stupid point, though.
Yeah, I didn't think that. I thought that was like,
that's kind of a stupid point on Andrew's part.
Yeah, I was like, when they had their follow up and he was like, yeah, you know, I can't believe that you were asking me questions that you hadn't thought of yourself. I'm like, nigga, it took you 2 weeks to think of that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't like that at all. Like,
think of something so goofy.
Yeah, that was, I thought that just proved how he got cooked in that first one. This is the biggest thing. It was like, I think this is the biggest thing. The guy was trying to be honest with him. I think Andrew could have been less hypocritical, which is why they had no problem. I guess it doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't matter.
Well, it don't matter.
A little less snarky.
Right, which is why Andrew did. I think it's interesting that Andrew could have been honest about, yes, you did capitalize on social media. You do know what works. I think it's interesting that somebody who led with flagrancy so much and was the forerunner of that didn't have all of his flagrant talking points down. You know what I mean? Even down to why you use some offensive words and you don't use others. He didn't even.
That shit fucked him up.
He couldn't even explain that. And I thought that was so interesting, because for somebody who was the forerunner of flagrant, like essentially like if you didn't know Andrew Schulz before he became the guy that used tranny just because he felt like it.
Because it was a cute joke.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like before, like a lot of people were introduced to him in that time period because they were like, yo, this dude is the most offensive comedian, the funniest, most offensive comedian. He goes there. He goes there. He's got, comedy without fear. Like that's what he rolled with. You know what I'm saying? And that was his version of comedy, which wasn't all the way authentic. And he could have been slightly honest about that, how it wasn't all the way authentic, because
you don't think he thinks that they're actually trannies?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not getting diverted off into that. But it's like it's not because if you're gonna lead with that and you believe in that, then it should be 2 seconds why I don't say the Jewish offensive word and I don't use the N-word. It shouldn't be, I don't know why I don't use those words. But it should be immediate. And then it's also later down in the interview.
He answered the question.
He didn't answer the question. And then later down in the interview,
he gave an answer. He gave an answer. Which was, he said that there wasn't an attached systematic oppression.
No, there's not.
That was what he concocted 2 weeks later.
Yeah, but sometimes you don't. He just started therapy, dog. Ironically, but
niggas start using therapy when they backed in that corner.
You either a therapy patient or a comedian. That shit get you out of jail.
Well, what are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? I don't like that shit.
That shit get you out of felony.
Niggas start doing that.
But
I don't
he
like
did
that
answer
shit.
the question. He was like, some words have a certain an association to violence in his life, in that he chose. You know what I mean? Like in his experience.
But he still he tried to intellectualize it. Like, it isn't just as simple as, dog, I have black fans, I have black friends. That's the obvious reason why I use the white slurs and not the black slurs.
Yeah.
But he tried to make it seem like there was just this, like, you know, he used a Socratic method and really broke down each slur by what it represented historically. It was like, those are the ones I'm going to use because those are the good ones. Those are the clean ones. It's not that smart.
I mean, you mad because the nigga was introspective? Like, come on. I mean, I understand.
Mad,
I understand.
But I think he over
pompous. He's very. It's like, what's up with the pompousness?
What's up with all this pump? Man?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's listen to his. Let's listen to what he said about using offensive slurs because I thought it was a terrible reason.
Abysmal. Stephen A. Smith will call it a monstrosity.
28 minutes.
Tell him to stay off the weed.
Isn't necessarily like the right thing in a moment, but it is true. And I can live with criticism for the thing that I believe in and the thing that I feel like is true to me. Being criticized for the thing that is fraudulent to you is like a double whammy. It's the worst. You were fake and you were rejected.
Yeah.
Reject me for who I am, that's fine.
Here's something I am, this falls under the category of things I am legitimately curious about.
Sure.
So in your...
The other stuff, no curiosity.
So in your stand-up and, on the podcast or appearances on other podcasts, there are some, you'd call them slurs that you use.
Sure.
And I'm thinking of one in particular, starts with R, commonly used to describe intellectually disabled people.
Yeah.
And then, so you use that, you use, I think in the first minute of Infamous, you use a derogatory term for Mexicans.
Which one? Oh, yeah. But to the Mexican.
Right. Yeah. But
they're in on it.
There are other ones you use, and the thing that, but then there are other.
It's in a compliment. I think it's important to like contextually.
Oh yes, I'd also like to say the thing that is I think it's important to note with your stuff is that it.
Let me say this too as well.
Wasn't the best time set, but yeah.
Well, it's a little bit too early.
Yeah.
But let me also say this. I just thought it was how interesting it was that. This is when I realized that this is why I say like Andrew's not ready for his comedy to be criticized or talked about because he hasn't fully thought it out. When you've ridden away, when you've gotten your extreme fame, popularity, and notoriety of something that really wasn't authentic to you, which is I think a little bit of what happened with Andrew Schulz, even though I do think he's funny naturally. Like I will go to his stand-up comedy shows, whether he's offensive or not, and I find him a funny person. But when you rise off of something that you don't truly believe, him being questioned about it, he didn't handle it well at all, even in there. You know what I mean? Like, I've watched plenty of Patrice O'Neal things when he's debated people, and when they're like, well, why would you say this? And he has a full blown out, it's like, there's no nothing, you know what I mean? And Andrew's like, still like making all these excuses and trying to figure out. It's like he's still trying to figure out his own version of comedy without contradicting his entire style.
The main answer for Patrice though was funny, which is an answer. But would you have accepted just like, yo, it's all for funny from Andrew?
If he said that, yeah, I would have.
Okay, that's fair.
But he never brought that up. I remember, and something else that I also thought was interesting, when he was talking about having people on and how you decide with the type of things that you answer somebody. Not the type of questions that you ask somebody on your show.
Yeah.
He says the interviewer, he was essentially establishing the rules of what we all do, right? He was saying the only questions the interviewer is ever going to ask is things that interest him, not really what his audience wants to hear, and that's how Andrew feels it should be or whatever. Yeah. Which is why when he had Trump up there, that's how he approaches it. So when he had Trump on there and shit, that's why he only asked about those top 3 things and didn't ask about anything economically. But when he had Bernie on there, he did ask for anything economically. But the interviewer kind of like called out the hypocrisy too, because he's like, you're such a Bernie fan and Bernie's so economically surrounding all
Bernie
this
talks
stuff.
about economic disparity,
Right,
Yeah.
so
in a way
much.
that really addresses the issue.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fact that if you're a Bernie stan, that should be a talking point for everybody because that's what you became a fan of, essentially. You know what I mean?
Especially the nigga
But
running
damn.
for office.
Right. So it's like
got-
but I remember when he was describing his show, he used everything but funny. I do remember that. And I thought that was interesting that he used everything but the word funny. And he didn't start leaning on, well, I'm a comedian until the very end when the interview brought it up.
They brought it up in the
Because-
beginning as well.
Yeah.
There was a couple moments to where, but he didn't hang his hat on that point
because he didn't want to
like he
give
normally
people
does.
a way in on like he normally does. That's not normally the New York Times. You know what I mean? Different audience. He wants to be seen in a different way, which might be inauthentic, but whatever. It's like it's all. He was. I'm not gonna lie. He probably was. He did come in maybe a little combative.
They were both
He was
paranoid.
Both
They were both paranoid.
I don't
Paranoid.
think the
on-
dude was paranoid at all. I don't think that nigga wasn't worried about shit for real.
That nigga
He
was
was
shaking.
flustered.
That nigga
Andrew
was
was-
flustered, dog. He was shaking in his boots.
I think he
at
was
some
flustered
points.
because I would get flustered as an interview if every time I ask you a question, you ask me, what do I think?
Frustrated is different than flustered. You would be
It
frustrated.
sounds the same to me.
You wouldn't lose your composure though. That's what we're saying about 𝙿𝙾𝚃𝚃. That's what's his
Marchese.
name? Marchese. He got out of control of the situation. And
I don't think so.
he gave Andrew the steering wheel, and Andrew abused that shit because he realized he could do it early on.
I don't think he really gave him the steering wheel. I think Andrew tried to take the steering wheel a couple of times and he didn't let him.
Every time-
he gave it a
every-
little bit, but he only gave him a little bit, but he made him like, okay, bruh.
Every time
Andrew was trying to steer away from his lineup of questions because he realized he was in over his head.
And it happened. Every time Andrew answered the question with a question and the interviewer answered it, he
That
had
was
control. He had
that
power.
was crazy.
And
Yeah,
it
that
happened
I agree
every
with.
time. There wasn't.
Yeah.
No,
and
I do agree with that.
The
Yeah, for
interviewer,
sure.
the interviewer called it out and kept doing it. Like,
Yeah,
he was
I don't know why he did
fucking-
that.
I can't even help myself.
Yeah.
You asked
No.
me a question, I got to answer.
Right. No, I do agree with that. I do.
And
I
that's-
do
Can't
agree
break
with
the
why
code.
he didn't do that. But I do think he also always made sure he brought it back. Though it's not like he completely lost his point. It'd be one thing if he always
Yeah.
answered and then never circled back around to get the answer for his question.
And that's
but he
because-
did always circle back around.
And I feel like a part of that is because Schulz was getting his opinion on the big questions that he couldn't just outright answer based off of whatever the dude said. So it's like he built his argument based off of his opponent's take. And that's a lot easier than just constructing your own thought on some shit.
because
that's trash.
because
Exactly.
you're
Trash as
confused.
fuck.
You're
That's
confused
goofy.
as to
Yeah.
whether,
Yeah.
but you're
I
confused
agree.
as to whether
Yeah.
you're confused as to whether it's a debate or a conversation. So it's like when your perspective is on the debate side, you have to do that. Like you have to protect the back end just in case he's trying to build a case.
Well, I think
Which he
Andrew showed
probably
his.
was
I
trying.
think Andrew stated that he was in fear of getting. This is what I also thought. When I watched this, I realized a lot of these people who have built and cultivated a fan base, a lot of them should not leave the thing that they built. I don't think a lot of them should leave it because people like Andrew, I think he showed that he was afraid of a gotcha moment. He said it in the interview. He's like, every time I come to places, I think somebody's trying to set me up. And it's like, if you're going to run into everything with that fear, then it's maybe safer for you to just stay in your ecosystem. You know what I mean? Like, why continue? If you're always
That's
going to
interesting.
be, if you're always going to be afraid that when you go somewhere else, somebody can set you up with a gotcha moment, what's wrong? And I don't think there's anything wrong with staying in your ecosystem either, right? If your ecosystem has made you a millionaire, then why not only talk to my friends? You know what I mean? Instead of, normally when you go outside of your ecosystem, it's for growth. You know what I mean? Like,
Which is what he wants.
which is what he wants.
He wants
but
to
then
be looked
you
at
also,
as a bigger figure than just a comedian.
But then you also can't go everywhere and be afraid of a gotcha moment and give lackluster interviews and poor interviews and not represent yourself correctly.
And a part of that is just the whole split on the two sides of media, the old regime and the new media that's on the internet, to where even Joe Rogan, he even goes on his crusades to where it's like, yo, we the new heroes. Like CNN, TMZ, CBS, ABC.
People want to hear the real thing.
They lie. Like people want to get the real talk, the real
Yeah.
information from people who aren't trying to manipulate opinions. But they've kind of become what they've hated to a certain extent. Because once you build an echo chamber, it's like shit. You just as bad as CNN. That's all
But
CNN
is that what they've created?
Who?
Yeah, anybody
Most
who's,
definitely, dog.
I mean-
the Rogan sphere.
I mean, you
there's
can say anybody who's become successful has created their own echo chamber, you know what I'm saying? Or echo chamber.
But
essentially,
but
you know
damn,
what I mean?
so everybody Us too?
To a certain degree.
I don't.
It's like, is everybody the same then? It's like, shit.
Well, it depends. It depends on do you stay in your echo chamber or do you travel amongst other echo chambers?
Joe Rogan.
You know what I'm saying?
Joe Rogan kind of talks to everybody.
But everybody's coming to his.
Everybody comes to Joe Rogan.
Everybody's coming to him.
And the thing about his world is that like everybody a part of that world believes the same shit.
Right.
They're all under the same spell.
Okay, yeah.
And even the people that he interviews nowadays, it's not like a bunch of like him disagreeing with some old white dude that thinks that Mexicans built the pyramids isn't the same as like him really talking to somebody on the other side of the political spectrum.
It's him debating Candace Owens, essentially.
We got to look up who he's had on because I'm pretty sure he's had on both sides of the spectrum on the political side, and I'm pretty sure he's disagreed. Like, I just don't want to put him in a box. I don't want to Marchese him.
He's in a box, dog. He's in a box that he created. Once you get that big,
he created the box.
You have gravity, and once you have gravity, you establish rules. You choose how hot your sun is, how many craters the moon got.
And I think it's just like when you see people leave their universe that they've created, it says a lot about them as the talent. You know what I'm saying? Like the truly great talents, I feel like can operate in any ecosystem.
Like when Timmy Turner went to Jimmy Neutron's world.
Yes.
Nigga was perfectly fine.
That's what I'm saying.
He was all 3D animated and shit.
But when you can only operate within them, because when you operate within them, there's also a certain base level set of rules. You know what I mean? Like I might not ask you these things. I might I'm not going to press you as hard as these things. You know what I mean? Like,
and nobody gets that more than Rogan, dog. The people that want to be a part of that shit. Of course, like, you know, there's levels to everything. There's levels to his guests. But everybody that goes on JRE is trying to suck off his elk nuts.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, the Rogan sphere is a term for a reason. You know what I mean? So it's like, it is what it is.
And you got to hunt with bows.
And same with the flagrant, the flagrant sphere. You know what I'm saying? That is its own universe. We can attach loudspeakers to that. We can attach the Breakfast Club. You know what I mean? Like all the friends and things like that. Like they're a part of that. That's their thing. Yeah. So let's just say if Andrew goes to anybody that's not a comedian, it's like he's exited his world. You know what I mean? And now he's stretching. You know what I mean? So how do we perform when we're out? Because remember when they brought up the trigonometry thing, this shit, nigga he had PTSD. When the trigonometry thing came up,
he snapped back.
The nigga was like, God, I knew the shit was gonna come. Like I said, damn, I didn't even watch the trigonometry thing. Yo, his reaction was so crazy. I said, I gotta watch it now.
He reacted like Dame Dash does with Jay-Z questions.
Yo, what the fuck?
My God.
I was like, well, damn, if you didn't react like that, I wouldn't be dying to watch it now. Now I have to watch the trigonometry thing because holy shit, did they tear you up like that? Yeah. And then he was I know he brought up later, I think he was even more pissed off at them because those two guys are comedians. Yeah. So he felt betrayed. He felt betrayed that like these niggas on trigonometry would do that to me because he thought they had the comedian, that comedian thing that you wouldn't do that to me.
Yeah,
I think that.
But
I don't even know what happened.
I thought people just took his words for truth. Like he basically said, "I think I would have voted for Democrats if Kamala get more bitches or whatever." Yeah. And people took that. Like
they did take his word, but I think he still blames them for even setting that up. Like, you know, I got to set you up in conversation to go down that route.
I didn't hear that in the interview. I
didn't watch trigonometry, so I have no idea. All I'm going off of is how offended he got. He was furious.
This shit still exists.
Yeah, right. Yeah. When the nigga in this interview brought it up, he was hot. He was like, God.
Yeah.
I knew this was gonna. I was like,
he almost twisted his mustache.
I said, bro, what happened? You know, that's all I was thinking, bro.
Do you feel
what happened over there?
Do you feel any empathy for Schulz in the sense that, like, all right,
no,
you're a comedian?
Absolutely not. The reason I don't have any empathy for Schulz, you got to finish. The reason I have no empathy for Schulz is because
that's funny.
I think it's okay to be a hypocrite if you say I'm a hypocrite sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like if you're okay with that, like if you're not willing with anything, you know what I'm saying? If you're just willing to stand on that shit, don't try to make it seem like it's more grand or higher than what it is. Call it out for what the base level it is and joke about that base level bullshit that you're on. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Be like, yeah, I mean, I know. Sometimes I just say shit just because I know it's gonna hit. You know what I'm saying? It's not always funny, but I know it'll hit. And you can make that to the joke. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think, like, because that was a point that you were making earlier that I forgot to push back on.
He never said that.
Do you don't believe that he believes in the flagrancy?
I don't. I do not believe that.
You don't think, and you framed it like you don't think he ever believed in it.
No, I think he believes in it, but I think he leaned past his belief.
Or like he grew up?
No, like no. Like he pushed past his belief. So like I enjoy raw comedy, but holy shit, I didn't realize if I just add a couple of more slurs, I can make a couple more million. And like he was like, and you know what I'm saying? That's what I think.
I don't think it's
So I
that
think
simple. And I don't think it was that simple because we got to understand who Schulz was. Like there was a point in time where he was like crying over where his career was. And he's been the same flagrant person. That shit just wasn't really working at first.
Right.
But then, you know, he found his different methods of like posting crowd work and like certain things, the ball just got rolling. And a lot of times it's just like the climate of America has to change to where you're the hero that we need. And then once it's time, once your jersey's called, you go into the game and it just, everything was perfect.
But doesn't that bother you?
Style of play
But doesn't
that you
bother-
always did
Right.
is now in service. But I don't think there was a point in time where he didn't believe in that shit though.
I do.
I don't think it is. I think if anything, you know, you have a daughter, you get older, you get married and shit, you're probably not as flagrant as you were 5 years ago.
Right.
But you still, he probably still has just the comedic license of like, we should be able to try to go there. Because it's a tight walk.
Why
And it's
did
like if you fall,
he never said that though.
And the thing about Schulz
that interview.
the thing about Schulz that's honorable is that like he doesn't blame you when he misses, which is a sentiment he was trying to share in the interview to where it's like I can't get mad if somebody doesn't think something is funny.
Exactly.
It'd be different if he took that approach to where it's like, oh, if you're not laughing, you just don't get it. Or it's like, you're not offended, you're just stupid. That's different. He's like, if you're offended, you have the right to be offended, but he also believes he has the right to offend on accident.
Selectively though.
Selectively.
Right.
Which
he wouldn't admit to.
Which is that little finger trap that niggas getting
Chinese
cereal
finger
about,
trap?
the Chinese finger trap that he found himself in.
And he also wouldn't admit. So it's like
Because he
thing.
tried, like I said, he tried to intellectualize it when he should have just been like, dog, fuck it. It happens.
Right.
You know why I don't use those words, nigga.
That's why
I
he
would
flopped.
get in more trouble.
That's why he flopped in this interview to me.
But I don't think it was a complete flop. That's where
do.
we disagree. I don't think it was a complete flop because of David Mozzarella and his cheesiness.
I think he's lucky that it came out on this, but as people drop their think pieces, I think this will go a lot bigger. Because in a one day,
we dropping ours. We gonna see.
I mean, we dropping ours. You know what I'm saying? But I think I think there's gonna be a lot of reference points in this to where it's like, oh my god, why did he put himself in that trick bag?
You're right, though. I am.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna happen, bro.
Well, you can make anything. It's 2025. You know what I mean? Like,
But you can also give it to me on a silver platter. That's what he did.
hot.
Yeah, it's just
Steam.
If I just want to find a hypocritical, it's just so many things because I'm questioning you about your career and your style of comedy. You're supposed to be a master at this. There shouldn't be no what do you think? Fuck that. It doesn't matter. You should be the master of this. I shouldn't have to. If you're the master of this, you know what I'm saying? This is what you make your millions off of. Like you shouldn't be asking me what I think. Like if I ask Shannon Sharp, like what's the best route to run and shit, or
what's the best way to tie up a white girl,
or the best way to read the defense or read the offense and shit. Like don't ask me what I think, nigga. You're the master. You're supposed to tell me what you went into the game with.
that's
because
a crazy comparison.
whatever.
And
ask
I feel
anybody.
like Shannon Sharp,
Kobe, Sharp. It's like
Shannon Sharp's
anybody
the
who's
worst
a
one
master.
because he's an
Okay.
old
But
nigga,
even
and
with-
I feel like he'd be like, nigga,
but not
tell
the
me what you
person.
think.
The question, like the
Anybody
question,
who's a
is
master
different.
at their thing.
I think
You should know. You should understand your craft that you made millions off of inside and out.
I will
and your
say-
style. You should definitely understand your style, especially if you're going to be the nigga that's the spokesperson for Flagrant. Your show is named
I think
that.
he knew the answer, but he just wanted to go deeper. This therapy shit might be real. This therapy shit might.
Oh, no,
I think he
don't
genuinely.
let that
I think
cop
he
out.
genuinely was like,
He said, "I got to figure out what does Charlamagne do to get out of this therapy."
No,
that's right.
dog.
They could never push back on that. That's what he did.
no, I'm
He
telling.
tried. In 9 minutes in, he realized he was in over his head. Then
AJ.
30 minutes in, he said, "I've got to go to the therapy bag." At this
AJ,
point. I don't know what else to do.
it's men's health. It's
Men's mental health.
Men's Mental Health Month. I
also
promise
Pride
you,
Month.
a lot of dudes go through
We
shit.
can't have shit.
And Juneteenth. It's a lot of different things.
Right. What the fuck is that?
Everybody.
All the groups nobody cares about. 1 month, nigga. Let's just get it over with.
But it's I don't know, man.
I think it was
judging him a little bit.
I think it was a little bit more even split.
Yeah.
I feel like there's the same amount of violations on both sides.
Nah, I don't think so.
Sosi fucked up, and David Ramaswamy fucked up.
Yeah.
I think he cooked him.
No, if you're gonna
no.
be an interviewer, he didn't know what position he wanted to play. Like he got caught with his guard down, and he was like, "Oh shit, is this a conversation or an interview?" So it's like at that point, he kind of like like we said, the Schulz had his way in, but
isn't every good interview a conversation?
It's not the same as a regular conversation where there's a give and a take.
And I watched the Tim Dillon and CNN. It was great. Granted, that host was a little bit slower. It was not because she was a woman, but she just wasn't that good.
Yeah.
But that was like I ask you a question, Tim Dillon answers. She asked him a question. It was just a straight back and forth. It wasn't really a lot of conversation necessarily, or unless it was probably worse conversation because Tim Dillon.
I don't know. I mean, when I used to interview people, I had several questions, but my goal was to put it in conversation for them.
Yeah.
That was always my goal.
Because
you're a shitty journalist.
No, I'm a great
No, because
it's a looser format because it's podcasting.
Even the Breakfast Club, it's like Charlamagne would have questions, but they were having conversation, and then
are you talking about solo interviews?
I'm talking about solo. Yeah. Well, I guess I don't know
because solo
to me, interviewing podcasting, it's like to me. So like when y'all were kind of differentiating the two, if I invite you on, I'm essentially inviting you for an interview. Even if I invite you on my podcast, that's how I'm viewing it. Like, if I ask you to come over here, I want you on my podcast, but I'm essentially going to be interviewing you, nigga. You know what I'm saying?
Like that, but
it's rare when I'm unless it's a situation where it's like, Lay, just come to do the show with us. That's different. You know what I mean?
Kick it.
Yeah, but it's most of the time when you ask somebody to come over to your shit, you're giving them an interview.
Yeah, but that's new media. Old media, think like Larry King. Right. Nobody knows what the fuck Larry King thinks about anything he asks. He's just straight down the middle. Question.
And dead.
Question. Question. You answer, and then that's all it is.
But exactly. And I get what you're saying, but the interview, Marchese, I don't know why I could call him the interview, but Marchese.
That was the name of the podcast.
So I guess that works.
Yeah.
But Marchese was hypocritical. He was a hypocrite too.
But because you know what makes the interview the best though? You know why he still comes out on top?
Why?
Because he admitted to his hypocrisy, his hypocrisy in the interview with Andrew didn't.
In the sense that he didn't know who he was. Like, am I asking questions for the New York Times or am I?
No. In the terms of saying objectively, there's questions that I know I have to ask because of my audience or where I'm at, and then there's questions in here that I have to ask that I want to ask because I'm interested. And I understand I'm playing two roles right now.
And AJ, they both reflected 2 weeks later. Like they both reflected on the same goofy shit 2 weeks later. It was just like he was in his robot form. Like, you were right. I was processing my emotions in a way that I never calculated before. And Schulz was like, I don't know why I don't say the ER word, but it's beautiful, man. It's like
I would.
That's
but
fake as fuck.
I don't think it's fake. I think that sometimes, even in your profession, there's still things to learn. And you genuinely might not even know why you do things. You know what I'm saying? And that's how real, hold on. And that's how real it is that he didn't even know. That shit was just so subconscious. You know what I mean? He wasn't even conscious of what he was doing. It was so real. Like it wasn't.
I don't think he's going to do an interview outside his echo chamber again.
He definitely will.
Well, not again, but for a little bit. He's got to take a break. This hasn't made it.
How many interviews does he do a year? He's going to do another interview. Maybe
outside
like 2.
of his echo chamber is the question. Is the thing though that I'm talking about.
Exactly.
A situation like this, he's going to avoid this for a little while.
I think
no.
I don't think Andrew Schulz came out of that feeling defeated,
and
which is all it's going to take.
Yes,
because it's like it don't matter what the world thinks.
All it's going to it matters.
If he went in and was like, "Nigga, I bodied him," and there's enough people that agreed with that, he'll just do it again. Next publication,
exactly.
Bomb on him. Who wanted CNN, BET?
Just go bombing everywhere.
Hey man, we dropping bombs everywhere anyway. Fuck
nigga.
B-32s, baby.
Right on their nuclear bases.
All right. Let's go over to this.
That was a gay bomb.